Good evening. I would like to welcome Mr. Chrisman to the dais as our new member of the Planning Commission. Welcome.
So now,
Okay.
I have you stand and raise your right hand for me, please. After me, I, Robert Crispin,
I, Robert Crispin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Planning Commission for the Town of Haymarket,
as a member of the Planning Commission of the Town of Haymarket,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kim. I would like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for tonight, August 16, 2021. Roll call, please.
Weir,
Here.
Cottle,
Here.
Vianney,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Chrisman.
Here. All right. Before we get into the agenda, let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll open up this meeting with the public hearing for tonight's meeting. Ms. Lockhart.
Good evening, not council, I'm sorry. Good evening, Commission. Tonight we have before us the Crossroads Village Center special use permit. This is a new application for a restaurant drive-through use on the property located at 15150 Washington Street. For everyone listening and here in our audience, that is the open parcel that is beside Chick-fil-A. And the applicant has prepared an updated GDP. The new GDP is showing that the building was shrunk in size down to 2,250 square feet. There are 2 drive-through lanes. Previously, in a other application, there was a single drive-through lane with stacking in the front parking lot. Now we see that there are 2 stacking lanes on the right of the structure as you look at it top down, and there is a designated exit point on the backside. The applicant has also addressed some of the pedestrian connection concerns from a previous application by providing crosswalks within the site and the parking areas with clearly designated pedestrian walks for safety. In addition, there was some consideration of where the patio area is going on the site as well. I want everyone to refer to page 239 in the packet. That's going to be your most clear vision of the updated GDP. The following page 240 is going to be the updated transportation numbers. This is using the ITE codes and having in there all of the proposed uses. One of the items that I wanted to make a note of is the AM peak and the PM peak times. So this is for that peak hour in the morning and the peak hour in the evening, what they're estimating would be generated. And I also wanted to note in there that that total that is given, that does not include our residential uses. Specifically, as you look at page 240, and also real quick housekeeping item, if you're looking at it on your screen and it is turned, you can right click, rotate it counterclockwise. I do apologize that it was put in the packet sideways. That might make it a little easier to read. So I would just want everyone to note that the new number of the projected daily total is 9,494. But again, this is for the non-residential portion of the project. Once you add in 556, your total is in the 10,000 mark. I believe it's 10,051 daily total vehicle trips per day. So those are the items of note for this new Starbucks SUP. I do want to now open it up for any citizens who are here to speak for the public hearing to please do so. And then we can also hear from our applicant on the updates and anything else that they would like to present to the commission.
You can state your name and address, please.
Jim Payne, 6680 Fayette Street, A Dog Stay Out. I'm here in support of the SUP. I have followed this fairly closely since we're actually, our building is right behind it or right to the side of it, however you want to interpret that. I know the applicant has done their due diligence in trying to check every box and get every point. I know this, I guess, and Emily was nice enough to show me on the graphic. I couldn't really see it online because it wasn't very clear, but I see they do have 2 drive-through lanes, which should alleviate some of the concern of cars getting pushed out to Washington Street, and it also has a designated exit. And I say, well, my employees also ask me from time and time again, I'll probably be one of their best customers for the Starbucks. And I do like how the Planning Commission had done in the past, had worked with the applicant, to address some things kind of in real time. So it's not so much 1 month, 2 month, going back and forth. I myself was involved with something like that probably long before you guys got up to the dais. So I do like how that transpired. I did see the other SUP kind of go out all the way to the end to council just to get voted down. I know this was not cheap for the engineering plan to redo this. I don't know how much it was, but I feel the applicant has put in their due diligence, and I think the last SUP was recommended by staff and the PC. So I'm hoping this new proposal does go to fruition, and I do thank you for listening, and have a nice night.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. I'll now close the public hearing and bring us into a regular monthly meeting.
Chairman, real
Sure.
quick, if you don't mind, since we did just have one person walk in, I would like to ensure that they did not come for the public hearing. If they do want to make comments, I'd like for us to give that opportunity, and also for the applicant to speak.
All right.
Ms. Leonard?
I'm in favor and support the Crossroads Village, I was going to say it backwards, being approved. I want to see the town finished. The citizens in the group that I am president of for the betterment and harmony of Haymarket and Western Prince William County are also in favor of seeing that project approved. We don't want to see loopholes that allow SUPs, things that have stopped things from being approved in the past. In my history of being involved in Fairfax County, Prince William County, this town, we did not see situations where an SUP was used to the extent that it's used in this town, because they were usually used to put a limit on the amount of time that something could be allowed. it would be an SUP for a 20-year period or a 40-year period or a 100-year period. We're not limiting anybody's approvals. If they're approved, they should be approved. I don't understand the point for a special use. And there's so many times that we use it here that I think it's overdone. So thank you for considering it. I hope they get approved this time.
Good evening, Planning Commission. Good to see some familiar faces and some new. So I'm Don Wooden with Melodon Group, and we are proud to come before you again tonight, and hoping that this might be the last time that we have to go through this process with all of the uses that are going on with Crossroads Village. Happy to give an update, if I may. It appears as if things are moving ahead on site plan. We have most of the uses in the commercial identified, and the residential uses. We had some stumbling blocks in terms of just getting the financial aspect of the project to work, but we have finally worked through that with lenders and partners and all the things that you have to do when things go differently than you anticipate. But I'm happy to account that those things have been worked through, and we're happy to proceed with moving some dirt on Crossroads Village at Haymarket. Our anticipated time to start is sometime in the month of October of this year, and it looks like we're going to finally see the project moving into fruition. Tonight we have a special use that we've got before you, which we've brought before Planning Commission in the past, which is a Starbucks. And some of the simple distinctions is that the past special use permit had two tenants on the particular parcel, Starbucks sharing with yet another to be proposed tenant that we did not have. And as Emily pointed out, a single drive-through lane versus a double stacking drive-through lane. So those are the primary differences. Starbucks taking the parcel in its entirety. Because of that, they have asked for an expanded outdoor seating area, which we didn't have in the last special use permit. It was a smaller outdoor seating area, and this one is more expansive in its nature. I think that's kind of the high points, but we're certainly here to answer questions tonight and hopefully move the application through the process of the town. So, thank you very much.
I can close it now. Okay. I'll now close the public hearing and bring us into regular monthly meeting. Next thing on the agenda is minute approval. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes for the meeting on July 19th?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we will move on to agenda items.
I forgot to add citizens' time for the regular meeting on Tuesday.
Sorry, actually you have it here. No, you did not.
Citizens' time for the regular meeting.
Okay, are there any citizens wishing to address the Planning Commission this evening? Okay. All right, without objection, I would like to move the special use permit application prior to the ZTA. Are there any objections? No?
So, seeing no objections, I will give you guys all just a second to scroll forward to page 210 in your packet. since we put the zoning ordinance amendment in there. It's quite a large packet, so we did not print them for this meeting. Save paper. While you guys are scrolling, so this is the beginning of my staff report. I will state it here in the beginning so that everyone is aware. I am in support of this application. There are several concerns, though, that I would like to speak to the applicant about, as well as the commission, and have the applicant address. One of those being the conditions that can be found on page 226. One of the conditions put forward is for a restaurant with a drive-through. I would just like the applicant to speak to this and determine for the commission if this is a condition for a general restaurant or is it specific to the Starbucks or coffee shop use. There's a large difference when the commission takes into consideration approving this SUP. If there is a condition for just this restaurant with a drive-in versus a coffee shop, these are two very different scenarios and different uses that we should all be aware of when making this decision. The other item that I would like the applicant to speak to and address is the overall traffic numbers. When we calculate it, and we did go back and forth, so the commission knows I did go back and forth with Igor, with the Crossroads Village team, and they did update the numbers. That's going to be found on packet page 240. And this is the proposed. This includes, for everyone on the commission's awareness, this includes the proposed uses and those that were proffered with the original development plan. So you will see the hotel on there, and you will also see the daycare on there. As you look at the size column, that's going to be the total square feet of those types of uses. So there is a total of 5,832 square feet of other fast food restaurants with drive-through uses. I just want to kind of clarify that for everyone. That is 2 buildings. That's not just one. That is 2. And then you have your overall shopping center and you have your supermarket. So as you look through those numbers, just kind of keep in mind the different uses, what is proposed. But what I wanted to get at is that the numbers, when we add them up and include the residential daily trips, we calculate 10,051 daily trips. That is an increase if you scroll back a couple pages to the original proposed from 2018-2019 timeframe. The number was in the 8,055 range, and that was for a residential, shopping center, hotel, daycare, bank, and other fast food restaurants. So I just would like for the Planning Commission, keep that in mind as you discuss with the applicant and have the applicant also speak to those numbers. But at this time, are there any questions from the Planning Commission for myself or that you guys would like to discuss prior to calling up the applicant?
I have a question. Are
Yes.
there any requirements that the applicant hasn't satisfied thus far?
I'm sorry, can you
Are
repeat
there
that?
any requirements that the applicant hasn't satisfied thus far?
Give me a second. I'm thinking through. I don't want to give the wrong answer. The only thing that we have not completely gone through, but is more of a site plan phase, is discussing the utilities and stormwater. And I'm looking at my staff report as you look at those numbered items that we address from our zoning ordinance. So this is going to be found on page 211, and it's section 58-1.7, special uses 1 through 6. In looking at this area right here, the utility, drainage, parking, loading, other necessary facilities, they have begun to address this, the parking and so forth. Some of these other items are done during the overall site plan with the overall stormwater and utilities. The other item that is something that a full study has not been done on is the general welfare, people residing and working in the neighborhood. But other than that, the applicant has touched on and addressed the items.
Anyone else have questions for Emily?
I just want to take a look at the updated map. What was that, 240?
239 is going to be your updated site plan, the most clear version. If you give me just a moment, I can pull it up on the projector screen as well.
Aren't they going to add another turning lane too? Into the,
In what area?
from Washington Street? Going in?
So are you speaking to the one on Washington Street?
Going into?
Down low going into? Yes.
Okay.
That will be a small tapered turn lane in. So one of the items or maybe areas of concern, if you will, so you see Crossroads Village Boulevard right there on the right-hand side, you see that language. So right there, that's going to be the main entry exit of the entire development, and that is where the proposed traffic signal would be installed. And so one of the previous discussions that was had is, are people going to be doing U-turns at that light and circling back up in? Are they going to, when is the light going to be put in for those customers to take that left-hand turn? And so that was a lot of the discussion we had prior. And then right here, as you come through the light headed west, you do have that small turn lane taper area to take a right into that portion of the development. Then you can take your immediate right into the Starbucks parcel, or you can continue up to the Lidl. As you go a little bit further past that Starbucks entry, that's where you're going to have what we have today is that little taper for the Chick-fil-A, the right-hand
Okay.
taper and turn in,
Okay.
which then continues on for your CVS and then ultimately the right-hand to 66 ramp or Route 15.
What are the possible entrance and exit from the Starbucks or?
So the possible entry exit points from Starbucks, you would be able to turn here at Crossroads Village Boulevard. You would take your left-hand turn. And can you zoom out just a little bit for me, Sam? It cuts off a little bit, but you could go all the way up to the top and come back through the Lidl parking lot. Sam's kind of
Yes.
doing the cursor there. So that's one option to come in. You could go up to Crossroads Village Boulevard and take a U-turn, and you could get into the right-hand turn lane on Washington Street.
Okay.
Right there, you could do the U-turn and go in. So those are your two approaches if you were headed east and needing to turn in left. If you were coming from the east and you're headed west, you could go and turn right at the Crossroads Village Boulevard, go back in via Lidl. You could go through that intersection and you could take the right-hand turn in. Another possible option, if it worked with the Quarles property and an easement was granted, you could go into the Chick-fil-A development, take a right, and cut through that front parking lot and make your way back. That would be a little bit more cumbersome for the driver to do, but that is if the interconnected parcel were to be granted the easement.
But you'll be cutting through parking spaces, right?
That is correct. If you're exiting, just since we're on that topic, if you're exiting the Starbucks, so now they have a designated exit point for that drive-through, right over there where Sam's circling the mouse. So at that point, you can turn left, and you can come back up to that Washington Street entry exit point, and at that point, you would have to make a right-hand turn. You would not be able to make a left with what is currently proposed. There is a proposed median to go there. So at that point, you would have to make your right-hand turn, and you either headed west or you find another point to U-turn to turn back around. Or if you're at that drive-through and you take a right and then take an immediate right, you can go out and take another right and get to Crossroads Village Boulevard, which once the light were to be installed, you'd have the option to, you can still make a left or a right or go straight at that point, but once the light's installed, you would have a signalized left-hand turn with controlled traffic measures.
Emily, I have a question for him,
Yes.
for the applicant. Do you guys have any studies of the existing Starbucks down by Walmart? Any traffic studies on how much that generates? Because I feel like some of the customers would be, factored into that, right?
Yeah, in terms of the daily traffics, yes. I mean, obviously, the current Starbucks has a certain number that it's already generating here within
Right.
the town that's going across 15.
Right.
Igor, we didn't ask him for the numbers of our local store, did we? Yeah. So we were asked, I don't know, 3 months ago or 4 to collect data on specific Starbucks with drive-throughs.
Okay.
And so I think it was Manassas, Gainesville, and some other location. And so we had all of that data that we provided.
Okay.
But we didn't get the data specifically, because this one's not a drive-through.
Oh, that's right.
Here.
Okay.
Yeah, for that location.
Okay.
So a data that studies traffic for Starbucks with drive-through was provided to the?
It was, yeah, several months ago.
We'll go up to that page. It is page 229 in your agenda packets. And that's going to be Manassas, Sunday Manor, and Route 29.
Yeah, so this study actually was, the request was to understand the stacking. So this is sharing with Planning Commission what they called the stack during peak hours. So in this case, it was 11 to 12 cars in Manassas Sudley, and it was 11 to 12 cars in Route 29 in Warrington.
Go ahead.
Is that a double lane, those locations, or is that just a single lane?
Neither of those are double. Those are both single.
Singles.
Sunday Manor one, if you're at all familiar with that small development there, you come in on the far side of the building, you come across the front, and you stack on the other side of it. And then Route 29, if you're familiar with that one, you actually turn in and the stacking is all behind the building, and it'll stretch the entire rear of the multi-tenant building. And then you come up on the right-hand side and get your drink, and then you can do a left or a right.
Okay, so then this one's gonna be a double lane?
Yes.
Okay.
The back portion of it will be the double, that then condenses down to your single, to the pickup window, and at which point you go out.
And when you get a chance, Emily, can we take a look at the traffic study in totality, everything together, instead of just the Starbucks? Is it possible to have that?
For the Crossroads Village Center plan, the original one that was proposed, or are you talking about the entirety of the town?
The entirety of the Crossroad Village.
I've got the numbers right here.
It might be a little blurry, but I will read off the numbers for you.
Page 231, okay. So table 1 and table 2, so we need to add the values in both in order to get the grand total?
No.
No?
Table 1 is the total for both the approved residential and the approved commercial circa 2018, with all of the uses at the time, including the shopping center, the hotel, the daycare, the residential units, 2 fast food restaurants, and then the drive-through. And the total estimated trips per day were 8,055 in 2018. If you go to page 240, and the math here is not correct, because they didn't add the residential to the total, even though they credited the residential pass-through. If you factor in everything, including the hotel and the daycare center, you go from 8,055 trips per day to 10,051. If you back out the hotel and the daycare and adjust the pass-through on a percentage basis, you get down to 8,983. So with the hotel and the daycare center still factored in, you're increasing the total trips per day by 25% over 2018. If you back those 2 uses out, you're still increasing it by 11%, or roughly a little over 900 trips per day.
Why would those 2 uses be backed out, though? Isn't that something that has been proffered? Isn't that my understanding?
I couldn't hear you.
That has been proffered. We could ask the applicant what the current proposal is for that section of the development.
And looking at these various line items in this, I only see one entry for fast food restaurant with drive-through window. Aren't there 2 fast foods that are being proposed in
Yes.
addition to the Starbucks?
Yeah, it's done by total square footage.
Yes, it's done by square footage, so you'll see the one line item, but the total square footage accommodates the 2 structures.
Okay.
Similarly, the shopping center total square footage would accommodate the multi-tenant buildings that are being proposed on site.
So if I understand this correctly, with the coffee shop, in this case Starbucks with drive-through, is expected to generate daily traffic of about 1,846, is that correct? Daily total?
Yes, that is correct.
Is that just for weekday? And then we need to add weekend to that? I know there is a separate law. Is the 1846 for just weekday or both weekday and weekend?
One moment. I believe that's going to be your weekly daily totals, and then your weekend daily total is going to be the very last column that you see.
Daily, weekly total. So it's expected to generate less traffic during the weekend?
That's your peak hour on the weekend.
That's your peak,
Peak
hour.
hour.
There's people going to work.
Which is actually significantly higher than your weekday peak hour by about 30%. My math isn't that good. Let me try and look it up.
Emily, I think you had asked the applicant also to clarify in one of the conditions.
32%.
Yes, Don or Igor, would you mind addressing the condition regarding the type of business that is being proposed?
So on the, so specifically to the, Emily's comment earlier about the restaurant with drive-through use versus coffee with drive-through use. We, on this exhibit, have showed the worst-case scenario, which is the coffee with drive-through use. It generates more traffic daily than a restaurant with drive-through use. It is our desire to have it approved as a restaurant with drive-through use. So if, in fact, one day Starbucks decides to move out of the town of Haymarket, which we hope they don't, there could be alternatives with restaurant with drive-through use, which again demands a lower traffic generation than the coffee. I think the comment about the uses in the let's call it the northern part of the property, at the time we were anticipating hotel and or assisted living uses. And the reason that we specified that at the time was we had a hotel use that we were negotiating with, and that subsequently ended up being approved across the street. So the hotel's now here. And the reason that we wanted that to be one that we noted was because we needed a waiver of a height restriction. So I think the town's, was it 35 feet was the
50.
So it's 50 prior to the,
Prior to the request, it was 50 was allowed.
and now we've gone to 60?
65
65.
was what was requested and approved.
Okay. So we increased the height because we anticipated the hotel and or assisted living facilities to need that additional height to carry out their business plan. Does that help answer?
I guess the question remains, what do you plan to do with that portion of the parcel now?
It would be for any by right use, which we don't anticipate, or we don't have anything currently in place. Planning Commission may or may not know that we had gone through a lengthy special use permit application where we wanted to do 2/2 townhomes. We felt like that was the best use for that parcel, and it was a drastic reduction in traffic. And we had a user that was willing to step up and take on those uses back there with the 2/2. That was approved through Planning Commission, but was denied at council. So we're back to, we're restarting on that back parcel
So
as a
basically-
by right use.
Okay. So my understanding is with this condition here, if approved, like you indicated, Starbucks doesn't pan out, or if they, down in the future, they decide to relocate, what have you, it would allow whoever to put another fast food restaurant or what have you, right? It can't. So we would have 3 fast food restaurants on that site, potentially.
That's correct, yes. Yeah. The drive-through uses, they aren't typically restricted to certain types of, named uses. So that would be the request, yes. And again, we're showing the worst case traffic generator, which is the coffee with drive-through uses.
Okay, I think some of us, are new to this. So my understanding is the reason SUP is being required for drive-throughs is the concern with the traffic that would be generated with such a business, right? That's correct. Okay.
Emily, when the applicant was here before and we approved it and sent it up to council and they denied, I thought we had covered all the traffic counts. I thought what was in question was the circulation of the traffic on the site. Am I incorrect in saying that?
There was questions regarding the site circulation. There was questions regarding the signal and how vehicles would stack potentially on Route 55. And then there was also questions regarding the entry-exit point that is the, I guess you could call it the main one, that you would turn right into the Starbucks, and you would also end up in the Lidl parking lot. There was questions on how that was going to stack while people are waiting to get out, and how that drive aisle would be blocked.
Right, but my point is, that would be traffic circulation, ingress, egress. And we approved it last time, and it was denied at the council level. So I guess my point is, I thought we'd already talked about the traffic study.
There was a discussion. The traffic study has also changed, though, since that meeting.
Go ahead, Mr.
So
Mayor.
the numbers have come back to us different based on having the reduction in footprint, but also including in the proffered uses of the hotel and the daycare center, and then taking out the other multifamily housing units.
Right, and wasn't that always originally planned as a planned interchange park?
Yes.
And a plan, most interchange parks have fast food restaurants, correct?
I think it would depend on where you're at. Our planned interchange park is mainly based on office business use, and we still require an SUP for a fast food with drive-through. So you would find restaurants and other fast casual dining establishments, but I don't want to say, yes, you always find fast food at planned interchange
But
parks.
according to this, doesn't a coffee shop generate more traffic than a traditional fast food restaurant?
Based on this study,
So I guess my point is, if at
Good
some
idea.
point in time, Starbucks decided, hey, it doesn't work here, and some other fast food in, according to these numbers that we have here, traffic would actually decrease, correct?
I think it all depends on what type of restaurant it is, the footprint of it, the layout. Based on what you see in front of you, it is possible.
I just think as a business owner, to lock somebody in for future use based upon estimates, we just need to be really careful about that.
Go ahead.
I can actually speak to the traffic issue at council, and I have to make a mea culpa, because it's my fault. When this came through Planning Commission, I did not take out my calculator as I should have at the time and added the numbers up. I unfortunately did that at the council meeting, and the numbers didn't add up. And there were some numbers in there that didn't belong in there, which leads us to where we're at right now. If you look at the 2018 approval, the TIA totals for daily trips in 2018 was 8,055. The vast majority of the people who spoke against the project in 2018 were concerned about that volume of traffic. If you look at the amended TIA here, for everything that is approved, it raises the total to just a little over 10,000 from 8,055, takes it to 10,051, which is 25% more than was approved with two SUPs in 2018. Even if you back out the hotel and the daycare, which we have heard are not viable uses now, you're still at 8,983 trips per day, 928 more per day than 2018. I think what we also have to remember is that in 2018, there was a request for a third SUP for a third drive-through, and that was denied. One of the reasons that the bank with drive-through was approved was the relatively low number of trips per day for a bank, although I argued rather unsuccessfully at the time that a brick-and-mortar bank wasn't a viable use. So now traffic is part of the equation, and trip counts are part of the equation. Personally, I'm happy that the There's been an added ingress egress for the drive-through at the back, where everything was going through that one drive-through in the front. But the traffic issue is now paramount for me, and an increase of 2,000 trips per day over what was approved in 2018, and potentially more if other by right uses are used on that back quarter to replace the hotel and the daycare. You could potentially end up with an even significantly higher number than 10,051 at this point in time, because the numbers on a square footage basis for the daycare center were relatively low, and even for the hotel they were relatively low on a square footage basis. So I would need some sort of, in order to get my support for this, there's going to have to be some sort of condition with respect to limiting any other uses on that back quarter that would increase it beyond the current 8,983 trips per day, or at worst above and beyond the 10,051 contemplated if the hotel and the daycare center are part of it. And I'm not even sure I can go, I don't think I can sign off on a 25% increase in proposed traffic.
I think, from the get-go, this is no surprise. I've been concerned about the development because of the potential traffic, impact. I mean, we have to look at it, I think, in totality. We already know that Chick-fil-A generates significant traffic. You've got Sheetz, you've got McDonald's. We already know there are two fast foods, I believe, still Taco Bell and Popeyes, that are going to be going in there. You have the supermarket. You have 79 residential townhomes. I mean, we have to look at it all together and just use common sense, right? And also the fact that that location is very close to the interstate. It's going to be, I assure you, almost like a rest stop. There are going to be signs on there, interstate, Starbucks, drive-through, right? Taco Bell, Popeyes. What does it mean to the residents in terms of congestion and impact to traffic? That's the concern I have. Anybody else?
Does anyone else on the commission have any questions for the applicant or myself?
Emily, do you support this?
I do support the application as it stands as a coffee shop. I would recommend that it is conditioned as so. It does give me some concern after what the previous planning commission and town council voted on in 2018 and 2019. They rejected a third restaurant with a drive-through. And they listened to the citizens at that point in their discussions. So I do have some concerns regarding that condition. As for the traffic numbers, yes, it is a planned interchange park, and it is planned for high automotive transportation vehicular trips. However, I think there are mitigation tactics and measures that can be put into place to better accommodate the trips and the traffic. There are ways that we can look at the layout, and there are ways that we can discuss it to better mitigate the numbers we see before us. And then the only other comment I do have, and it's more of a architectural review board comment, but the dumpster up front on Washington Street, I think it does not go with our zoning ordinance and our guidelines. It is the very first thing you would see as you're driving down is the dumpster enclosure, and that's an item that can be dealt with, in a site plan phase, but it's something that needs to be thought our ordinance and our guidelines are there for a reason, and they request that the buildings are up on the street, and parking and those uses, the more unsightly items for a site, are put behind the building or at least screened in a manner. And so a dumpster right on Washington Street is not an acceptable thing for the town of Haymarket to approve. Yes.
What are the peak hours of Starbucks? Is it 5 to 7, 6 to 8? I just feel like a lot of the traffic that's going to be generated is before I even wake up in the morning.
It's a good question. I think we have that day, Igor, was there? Yeah, so the peaks, what Starbucks is telling us is 7:30 to 8:30 is the peak hour in their weekdays, and I think on weekends it goes to like 8 to 9 is their peaks. And I did want to take just a moment, because I want to put it into perspective in terms of traffic. Since we're talking about the Starbucks SUP, if you look at the overall delta from what was approved versus now what we're proposing, when you really break it down, it's literally 1.5 vehicles per minute in delta. It's 1.5 cars a minute. Because a center of this nature typically has a 16-hour day. So if you take that 16-hour day and you break that into trips per hour and then down to trips per minute, it's literally 1.5 cars a minute in delta. So it's insignificant when you look at it in that manner, but the numbers look big when you look at the entirety of the center and the entirety of the day and that kind of thing.
So, Mr. Weir, I believe you were saying it was 25%?
It's 25% greater overall, total. And even if you use the 16-hour day, it's 2 trips per minute. A little over almost 2.08.
Wasn't it 9 or 10% a day? I thought that was the delta, not 25%.
The total difference between what you've got on your TIA, including the hotel and the daycare or whatever, which are placeholders for the usage on the back quarter, is 25% increase. If you back those two out and don't build anything on the back corner and just leave it with everything except those two uses, then you're at 928 additional trips per day, or 11%.
Okay, and again, I'm new to this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but it's Zone B2 right now. So the applicant could put up a restaurant if they wanted to, right? That's their by right.
That is correct, without a drive-through.
Okay. Now, the reason that we have a SUP before us is because it's a drive-through, and it's expected to generate traffic. So that's something to consider. Right.
Yes.
I haven't had an opportunity to read all the background material, so this may already be addressed. The kind that's been thrown out there that Starbucks could possibly not work. It's always a possibility. Has there been any study done on the feasibility of having 2 Starbucks so close to each other? And then if the one Starbucks, say, over at the Walmart section, if that closes due to this one over here taking their business away, does that increase the traffic on this side then? Has that all been factored in?
So, Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, that Starbucks over at the Walmart is the one who is actually looking to move into town so that they can have a drive-through, and that one over there would close.
That would close, okay.
And adding to that, I was in favor of this project before, so to his point, I feel like a lot of the traffic, at least, is already here. It's just not stopping in town, it's going across the street.
Yeah.
And we're not getting any of the revenue.
But the issue is that it's going to be that specific area, right, where Chick-fil-A is, where McDonald's, where there are Sheetz, and everything else that's going into that development. What will it mean, right? in terms of congestion and gridlock, whatever you want to call it, but that's my opinion.
So if I may say, if they're going to close, if they're planning on closing the one over at Walmart, that's the plan? They would close that? Because that's a sitting area. So if you go over there anytime during the day, especially on a weekend, there's quite a number of high school and college kids that are, sitting there drinking and enjoying the time together there. They would then move over theoretically to this side. So you'd have a drive-through traffic as well as that much more increased in the visitors sitting and talking, so that many more cars. Would there be enough parking to accommodate not only the driving through, but that amount of sitting customers?
So based on our ordinance standards that we have, there is parking. Sam's going to pull it up here in just a second. There is the adequate parking that is required with these two areas. You have the one on the left, and then you have this other one down in front. And so this has been taken into consideration. You would have that patio area, and then Don, you would have to speak to a comparison of the square footage between that one and this one on inside seating for me.
Yeah, this particular layout is probably 50% larger than the other because of just the ability to have it. They didn't have the room on the other one because it had two uses. They don't anticipate this is going to generate more sit-down outdoor traffic than the prior example, but they had the opportunity to use
See
it.
if I can pull up the square footage on that.
One of the things that, since it's a new planning commission for the most part, if I may, and you'd like for me to, I can show you one of the major traffic mitigations. I think it would help you understand better what we're trying to do with traffic. And so if you had the GDP, the one showing the totality of the site,
I don't think it was part of the package submitted.
with all three entrance points.
Give us a minute to pull that
Sure,
one up.
sure.
Before you move from here, Emily, are we as a planning commission supposed to consider the site plan? I think you mentioned the ARB in terms of where the dumpster is located. Most likely that's a
That
no-go.
falls on us.
That falls on us?
Dumpster locations on us.
Also on the planning commission. So the architectural review board will be looking at the style, the materials, the colors, the screening, but it also falls on the planning commission, the location, and how the overall site is designed and laid out.
Now that you raise the issue, I personally believe that dumpster enclosure should be in the back parking lot, not right up on Washington Street, but
Which dated GDP?
Just the latest one that you have that's handy, just showing the totality of the site.
This is the overall, and then I'm going to zoom into the front Washington portion.
where was the dumpster pad previously, on the back corner?
It was in the back left-hand side off that T.
Yeah, I see it now.
That too close, or is that good?
No, that's good. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, so when we look at traffic and we look at traffic flow and what we're trying to do, one of the things that I think wasn't clear in times past is, and we've included it in your package, is the traffic signal. The signal is important not for just this development, but it's very important for queuing downstream when you're looking at other developments, i.e. Chick-fil-A, the bank, CVS, and so forth. And so in your package, you've got timing on that signal so that to clear everything up, so going forward, everybody knows, the traffic signal is warranted by VDOT, meaning that it is therefore approved and to be installed. Now, the way VDOT works is that they require now the design to be done, and then they have to approve the design. So the traffic signal is in design phase now, and it will be then given to VDOT for review, comment, and approval. So the question's always, well, when's it going to be installed? Well, we'll install it the day that VDOT approves it. So that's just how it works.
Don, real quick, on that note, can you send that documentation over to be included with our application materials going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I thought it was.
Wasn't the VDOT stating that it was warranted, that document was included?
Design, warrant,
Okay.
approval.
I'll follow up with you on that.
Yeah, we can get you a copy if you want. Yep, so the traffic signal will be installed. And so when we look at trying to reduce or mitigate traffic, so we look at the number of entrances into the site. So we've, for that, we've put in 3 entrances to the site, so we can take the traffic on a more smooth and regular basis. Another thing that we've done is we've designed it with right turn lanes. So what you want to do is you want to get traffic off of Route 55 as quickly as you can, so it eliminates, obviously, logger jams on 55. As you know, a lot of businesses in town don't have that right turn lane, and so when people want to turn, it slows traffic down and so forth. So we've got those right turns. And we've got a substantial right turn here as well, a right turn lane here. But when we install the signal here, and that's timed by VDOT, VDOT sets the timing, the intentionality of that traffic signal is to allow all this downstream traffic opportunity to get out in a safe manner. And that's what you don't have today, and that's why you think a lot about, gosh, the traffic and what's happening, because you see it kind of in an unsettled manner, because people are just trying to do whatever they can to get out, because they don't have that timed interchange. So once that's done, all of a sudden this right turn becomes a safe right turn, because now the signal is stopping that traffic flow. And Chick-fil-A becomes a safe right turn, and the CVS becomes a safe right turn, because now we don't have traffic flowing constant down 55 that's hurting that right out traffic. So that's what we can do to help in traffic measures, and we can help mitigate some of the impacts when we're talking about the traffic along there.
Can we, if possible, can the applicant show us where the various businesses and establishments, where they are on the
Certainly.
GDP?
So this is the Taco Bell with drive-through here. This is a Popeye's chicken with a drive-through here. This is a what we call a multi-tenant retail building. Right now it's shown proposed devised with 4 tenants, but it could be 5 if depending on the sizes of the small shop owners in town, and depending on what size they want. We can demise that up to fit and accommodate their needs. And then we have a bit larger multi-tenant building located here. Again, we can demise that how the tenants and businesses would like to see that. This being the SUP that's before you today, which is the Starbucks. And this actually shows the old configuration, which might be helpful. This had the 2 tenants here, and then had the parking configured, and you can see the drive aisle and how it went around the back and then back out to the front. So that differs on the old one. And then this is Lidl Grocery, wonderful grocer tenant. And then the back is the residential to be put in, and then the far back is the land area, which could be any by right uses or hotel, assisted living, daycare.
Is it possible to zoom out and take a look at the residential units?
So these are 79 townhomes with garages. And then this was actually the, to try to accommodate the town and reduce traffic, we were coming in to propose a 2/2 residential use here, and that was an SUP that failed recently. And so prior to that, it showed a large box here and a smaller box here, which again was shown as a daycare and a hotel or assisted living.
Oh, so that's the plan now, the updated plan with that, the units that failed?
Yeah, this is the most updated plan that was submitted as a GDP, because we were proposing to do the 2/2s. Yeah,
Okay.
but obviously this gets wiped out, and it's going to be a rough graded pad, with just a land area, because that was not approved.
Okay.
But at any time, you can submit an application in accordance with the B2 zoning, correct, for that section?
Say that one more time.
At any time, you can submit an application for a development based on a B2 zoning, right?
If it's B2, it's by right.
By right,
And
yeah.
so that would just be by right. So we wouldn't have to come, or we would not need to come through council or town or
Okay.
planning, yeah. But it would go through ARB and obviously staff and site plan, yeah. But if it was a special use, then obviously we would be back here talking to you once again. Yeah.
You mentioned it in that part, it's going to be graded. What does that mean?
This part?
Yes.
Well, when we start our site development, because we don't have a use, all we can do is just grade that and put grass seed and grass seed it until we find a use that would want to be a part of that. Yeah.
Do you
As
build in all, I'm sorry, do you
Are-
build in everything for the drainage and for that land areas? Or like, how's that going to be maintained over time? And who maintains it?
We would come here and stub this road up to the property line, and then that grass would be maintained by the Property Owners Association.
Don, do you still have the tot lot? Remember we talked about a tot lot last time. Is that still in there? I can't.
It's shown here, and I think we actually did another updated one, which showed another one maybe in here.
Okay.
But no, the tot lots were part of the residential special use permit.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So there's no tot lot for the 79 approved units, right?
There is.
Oh, there is?
There
Okay.
is. It's, this, I think all four of these are large green space areas, and so there's proposed tot lots and play areas here for the 79, right here.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on the SCP before us tonight? Is the commission ready to vote on the application tonight, or are there any outstanding items that you're requesting from the applicant?
Does anybody else have an issue where the dumpster is located?
I'd like to see it moved personally.
With the dumpster, if you're driving down 55, you could see it?
Right next to the streetscape, correct?
Invariably, dumpsters look, you can try to pretty them up, but it never works.
Still a dumpster.
Yeah, and right. And if you want to make us a walking town, why do you want to walk right by a dumpster? With the raccoons around and the various animals that are around, and they come out at night, they're going to trash it up. And you want to smell that right off the road?
Trust me, I walk by El Vaqueros every day.
Yeah.
If planning commission would like to make it as a condition, I think we could find an alternative site location on the site. I think that we could, I won't commit, but other than we can relocate, but I think that dumpster can go back here where it was in the prior, which could eliminate the concern, I think. These are, not to, it is a dumpster enclosure, but one, it's 20 feet off of the easement here, and it'll be heavily landscaped through here, and then this is all brick. This will be all brick with a nice cap around it, but it will be obviously doors there, that'll be facing that way into the parking lot. So it definitely, it's going to be a dumpster for sure, but it'll be a nice looking one.
As far as dumpsters go.
I feel like what this applicant's been through with making edits and changes, I really don't think a dumpster is going to be the turning factor. Personally, just my feeling.
Are there any other comments or requests from the planning commission? Is the planning commission ready to make a decision tonight? And if so, I'd like to request a brief recess to draft a motion.
I have no objection.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. If we could call a brief 5-minute recess, I will work on drafting a motion.
Cool, I can catch up with some work.
So I've handed out the proposed motion for the Planning Commission to review. I do have one modification to that. After the statement Crossroads Village Center Development, I've added the sentence pursuant to the conditions presented as the proposed special use permit conditions dated July 12th, 2021, and with the condition the dumpster enclosure shall be relocated to the side or rear of the building. I need to modify that. Are there any?
Can you read that again, please?
Yes, I'm going to read it in its entirety. I move the Planning Commission to recommend approval to the Town Council for the special use permit SUP 2021-003 to allow for a drive-through restaurant, specifically a coffee shop use at 15150 Washington Street, Crossroads Village Center Development, pursuant to the conditions presented as the proposed special use permit conditions dated July 12th, 2021, and with the condition the dumpster enclosure shall be relocated to the side or rear of the structure. Are there any other recommendations or suggestions prior to this?
Is there any way you could email that to us?
Does everybody have email access up there? I can print a new copy if that is all the
I think that
same.
would be helpful. Please.
Yes, we're printing it and it's on its way up. So that everyone's aware, when I stated pursuant to the conditions presented, that is the title of the condition statement that was presented from the applicant on packet page 226.
Thank you.
there's no other comments or changes, or if there are, any of the commissioners who feel ready can make the motion. Once it is seconded, we can have a discussion if there's any more adjustments to the motion or friendly amendments. And then following that, we will do a roll call vote. And for our newer member, this is a motion to recommend to the town council approval or denial. And so the town council will take into consideration the planning commissioner's recommendation as well as staff, and then any citizen comments at their public hearing, and then they'll deliberate on the matter and then make a final decision. One other just friendly housekeeping reminder, this is a recommendation in the affirmative. If for some reason someone would like to vote to deny, just keep in mind you would be voting no. So, and if it were to be changed for a recommendation of denial, that is done in the negative, so vote accordingly. Just general housekeeping. So when you're ready.
I move the planning commission to recommend approval to the town council for the special use permit SUP 2021-003 to allow for a drive-through restaurant, specifically a coffee shop use at 15150 Washington Street, Crossroads Village Center development pursuant to the conditions presented as the proposed special use permit conditions dated July 12, 2021, and with the condition the dumpster enclosure shall be relocated to the side or rear of the structure.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Roll call vote. Weir,
No.
Cottle,
Yes.
Yanni,
No.
Hallett,
Yes.
Chrisman.
Yes.
Motion passes. The planning commission has recommended approval to the town council. Staff will work to schedule the next public hearing at the town council level, and we'll be in touch with the applicant on when that date will be. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Planning Commission, and good to meet the new commissioners. Have a good night.
Me too.
All right, our next item on the agenda is the ZTA.
Just one moment. If you scroll back up to the top of the agenda packet, right below the minutes, you will see our 130-page zoning ordinance amendment. This is the document that Samantha and I have been working on for the better part of 6 to 8 months. We've brought it before the Planning Commission several times. We have requested for any comments and markups, edits to be made or recommended to us so that we can work on those. Most recently, Sam has worked on some modifications, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Sam to present to the commission what has been done since our last meeting and go over any of the questions that you may have regarding those changes.
Hello. Our ZTA ordinance, just the overview, we did a lot of tightening up on the language, and I guess you could also consider this sort of like a big cleanup situation. We cleaned up the uses section, and we created a large chart for uses now so that they're not just listed under their districts. We also added a few articles, specifically the definitions article and the use chart. So that brings our total number of articles to 22, which differs from the previous ordinance, which I believe was 20. The first article, which is page 9 in the agenda packet, is just shortened. It is simply an introductory article, which just introduces what the zoning ordinance does, what it's for, and kind of just gives a lay of the land generally. The SUP and the zoning permitting items have been moved to Article 3, the review and approval procedures. Those did used to live in Article 1. Emily and I thought that they would be more appropriate in Article 3 with the other review and approval procedures. Article 2 is our definitions. Those definitions that have not been utilized or have just been taking up space have been taken out. New definitions have been added, things like the continuing care facility, and we've also cleaned up a lot of the definitions in just terms of updating the language and including, that is packet page 11 through 41 as your definitions section. In the sign ordinance, we did move all of the sign definitions out of the main definitions section and put it into the sign article. This is packet page 144. So all of your definitions for signs specifically have been placed into this article. There's also a new sign map for the town, which includes 3 areas: a core district, a gateway district, and a residential district.
Can you hold up there for a second?
Yes.
Since we deleted the non-conforming sign language and moved it, you've now got a blank, so you need to put section, either renumber from sign area map forward, or add 58-17.12 reserved, because there is no section 12 now.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes.
So either renumber it, or probably just be easier to renumber
Yep.
the sign area map to 12 instead of 13, and then so on and so forth until you get to the next section.
Yes. Good catch. Thank you. So that is our sign ordinance. Oh yes, the maximum allowed signage in the gateway district is 25 square feet, as we had previously discussed. And the maximum allowed in the core district is 12. Those charts are on packet pages 160 and 161. Any questions about signs? Okay. Moving on to some use specifications. We added some, which would include honeybees and chickens, which are at a 1 acre minimum, as previously discussed. Microbrewery is a newly specified use. That is packet page 189. We also included short-term rentals and solar panels. And all of those are packet pages 189 to 197. Article 4, amendments, and Article 18, non-conforming uses, were wonderfully rewritten by a member of the Planning Commission. So those have been, the language in that has been tightened up, so hopefully we have closed some of the loopholes that used to exist in the zoning ordinance.
And that came largely at the behest of the town attorney upon the realization that in the case of amendments, because of what's happened in recent months, we were markedly deficient in process, and with respect to non-conforming uses, we had virtually none of the required language. And that is largely a rewrite or an adaptation of what's currently the language in the Prince William County Code, with some modifications to make it apply to the town and some input from Loudoun County.
Article 4 is on packet page 52, and Article 18 begins on page 162. Article 16 is the old and historic overlay. I did include the 1950 cutoff year to protect our town's historic structures. I also added some language that is more in line with current legal standards and the National Register bulletins. The demolition, I added a section on demolition review and approval procedures, and included some just general rules for the ARB, such as updating their bylaws annually, having a quorum present, etc. A lot of this was derived from Percival, who very recently updated their historic overlay ordinance, and this article starts on packet page 139. And then finally, just something fun, I found old 1980 cover designs of the zoning ordinance recently after I had designed the cover page for our 2021 zoning ordinance. So I thought that was kind of cool how there's a bit of a design thread. It's kind of a throwback to the 1980s. So.
Any of the commissioners have any questions for Sam regarding any of these changes we've gone over?
No, we definitely needed a new cover.
What about have we established what the overlay map's gonna be?
Overlay map. Yeah, I can grab that.
Not sure if I agree with liking the new cover because we're losing the historic, aren't we?
Here's the historic overlay.
This is the historic overlay that was discussed in our previous meetings. And this is what Sam has drawn up on the GIS program to bring back. Again, I'll reiterate some of our previous conversations that we had that led us to this point. In some years past, there was maps drawn up very similar to this map here. And so we started with that concept and we reevaluated which properties and parcels should remain in the historic overlay as you drive through town and you're seeing everything from Washington Street and the main corridors. We took into consideration all of those properties that front Washington Street. The properties that were mainly removed are the ones that are in HOAs, so Green Hill Crossing, Haymarket Station, Villages, Long Street, Sherwood. We also removed the ones on Madison Court and Madison Street. I will just call out, though, if one of the parcels fronted Washington Street and was part of one of these neighborhoods, it was left in. We also looked on Jefferson Street, and we left those properties in as it is one of our main corridors. And then we looked at Route 15, and we kept the properties that front Route 15 in the historic overlay as well. So this was discussed at several meetings with the Planning Commission. If there are any recommendations or modifications, please let us know.
And the primary thing with this is basically those properties would need to adhere to ARB guidelines. Is that what it is?
That is correct.
Okay.
As we work through our comprehensive plan, we will also be updating our historic resource list, the contributing resources. We're hopeful to add more information, notes on those structures or the structures that used to stand. There are some that have been demolished, but we will still leave them on the list and we'll just denote that they're no longer standing. So we really hope to have some assistance through Prince William County Relic Library, the resources they have, the Virginia Historic Register that came out and did surveys of these properties when the I-66 infrastructure was being modified. So we hope to take a lot of that into our comprehensive plan and really lay out the significance of these historic properties and why we have this overlay. Again, that's the comprehensive plan. That'll be a little bit further down the road, hopefully this fall. If there are no further questions on this, I would like to ask the Planning Commission, since we do have a new member tonight, Chairman, you are new in your role as well. Would the planning commission like to take 1 month to read all of these changes, digest everything, and then set a public hearing date at our next meeting? Or would you like to go ahead and set a public hearing date this evening? We can always set one this evening for, say, October. In keeping with consistency, I would like to recommend we keep it on our regular planning commission night so as not to confuse our citizens. But I want everyone to feel comfortable with what we're going to put up for a public hearing, and I want everyone to feel comfortable discussing and having a dialogue should citizens come and comment. I want us to be ready.
Mr. Ware.
After 8 months of working on this, I'm ready to move to the next step. It's not the final step, but it's the next step, which is garnering the public input. So without objection, I would like to direct staff to go ahead and schedule a public hearing for September 20th, I
I'm
believe.
with Bob. I think dragging this out another month, I don't think anything's going to change.
I have one staff request. Please read our new ordinance update. Please, if you have any questions, call and schedule a time to meet with me. I would like for everyone to be as prepared as you can be. I want everyone to understand the modifications because we will have citizens who come speak. We will also have citizens who will see you in your neighborhood capacity and speak to you there, and I don't want anyone to feel like they were not properly prepared. So a little homework item, please take it upon yourselves to read through, digest everything, and then come back to staff with comments, and we can certainly move forward with that public hearing date. And you can also email Sam, thank you. Sam will be continuing telework, and she has done a lot of these modifications for us, so she can always be reached via email, and I'm sure she can, as necessary, schedule a call with anyone, and we can always do conference calls. She will be back to help us with our public hearing, and so we look forward to keeping her on staff. Okay, so that date for September will be the 20th. We will set it for a regular 7 p.m. time. And as of right now, that will be the only agenda item. I will notify everyone if we have additional agenda items, but that will be the only item as of today.
I know that there are some people who are interested in the sign ordinance changes, especially those that are increasing sign options, particularly in the B1 and B2. Could you reach out to them just so they're aware of the opportunity to speak to it on the 20th?
Yes.
Several businesses have been querying about that.
We will also have our business roundtable meeting on September 14th is our next one. And I will be sure to mention that in that meeting so that all of our businesses are notified for the opportunity to come speak out as it affects them. I'll also work with our town manager. Not only will we put out our public hearing notice, but we will put out Facebook, social media, website updates, and we can coordinate the signage that we post out on public hearings. We can put some on our property to help alert our citizens.
We're going to have Jake do the message board sign?
I think we could certainly do one of the larger message boards leading up to it.
The more publicity, the better, please.
Yes, we also have our informational boards, one here at the town museum and one down at the park that we will put notices up there as well. Help us share with your neighbors. We'll send it out to the HOAs, but the more we can spread it, everyone's voice matters in it, so we would like to hear all of the feedback from our community. Any other items for the zoning ordinance at this time?
I just have a question, if I could
Yes.
ask. I'm trying to get up to speed on this ordinance review. How much involvement was the panel of the commission here in meeting with the public already? Has there been any involvement at all?
So, up to now, our citizens have been able to come in and speak during citizens' time. We have held work sessions. That's been a work session for the planning commission to talk through items. They're always open to the general public to come in and listen. And then at our regular meetings, we do have the citizen time to give input. But we have not yet held a charrette or a public work session where we have the public and the commission talking right back and forth to one another.
No, okay. So like, for example, I've been reading the material you all gave me
Yes.
to bring me up to speed on this, and I noticed one of the things it says in this zoning 101 book is that the zoning stuff is super complicated, because you have years of piled on regulations upon regulations, and I'm an old policy guy from the federal government, so I know it gets piled on, and sometimes you have to scrape down to the bottom and start over again.
And that's
And you
what
really
you're
need a
looking
lot
at.
of the input from the community that uses this stuff. Has the community, have we as a panel met with individually, said, hey, can we, like, to have gone to a developer, like say the gentleman that were here tonight, gone to them and said, what are the things that you find most difficult to work with the town on ordinances and zoning and that? Has there any been that kind of, or that's just left for the public hearing?
So I will say on a staff level, we do have feedback from our developers as well as our engineers who do up these site plans. Here's what is working, here's what is difficult. We also get a lot of comparison to, well, the county allows this and the town restricts this. So we have, on a staff level, we have that input. And so that's something that Sam and I have tried to work to incorporate some of the modifications, and we brought those up to Planning Commission. As for individual planning commissioners, I don't want to speak for them directly if they've reached out to citizens, but to the best of my knowledge, no, they have not.
Okay.
We'll-
Actually, I've spoken to both the residents
Okay.
and a number of the businesses, and getting to your tear it down and rebuild it, that's essentially what we had to do, because prior to 2017, this was the zoning ordinance. And then it was replaced in its entirety by what I view as a cookie-cutter contractor version of a one-size-fits-all zoning ordinance, which didn't fit all.
Right.
And in going through the process of, we've done this one section at a time, line by line, over the last 8 months, and incorporating what, in fact, I think Mr. Wooden's actually made some comments in the last 8 months that have been incorporated into this. I know that at least one of his contract purchasers has had significant input, at least on the sign issue. It's probably not going to be enough to satisfy him, but it's more than what he had. But yeah, it did need to be torn down and completely rebuilt, because there were aspects of the zoning ordinance as it's currently constituted, if we don't revise it, where there are conflicting portions and there are significant deficiencies, particularly with respect to enforcement, non-conforming uses and amendments, which have cost the town tens of thousands in legal fees. So in order to preclude falling into those holes yet again, I know the town attorney is most happy to have at least those aspects addressed, so that his life is easier and so that the town's life is easier, so that we're not answering legal questions based on conflicting sections of the code, which we unfortunately do have in this particular version.
I mean, too, this is something that's been morphing for probably the last 8 years. There's been a lot of thought to go into this. And the areas we consistently get criticism, and rightly so, is in the signs. A lot of businesses don't like our sign ordinance, especially people that are off the main road here on Washington Street. There was a lot of ambiguity in here, and there were, frankly, a lot of contradictions and things that weren't well defined. So what happens is businesses come, spend a lot of money reading through, they come to us, and then it's like, well, where'd that come from? It's not in your ordinance. So this has been a very thorough scrubbing. I'm not saying it's perfect by any stretch, but it's a 90% improvement of what we've had. And I've been involved in towns here in some form or fashion for the last 8-9 years, and this has been as thorough as anything we've ever done. Again, I'm not saying it's perfect, it couldn't be improved, but this is something that definitely needed a rewrite. Basically, a total rewrite. So I appreciate what Sam and you all have done. You've done a lot of work.
I'll have Sam send out a clean version as well as the strike-through version so that you can see where those modifications were made. I know sometimes it's easier some people prefer strike-through, some people prefer the clean version. But again,
Maybe it's just my computer, but it looks like you've got repetitive sections of strike-through and new text
within the packet,
within the packet.
sometimes when you download it into a PDF, it will do funny things.
Yeah, it
So-
looks like it's repeating pages.
Yes,
Or
so-
repeating sections, I should say.
Yes, so
'Cause that
what-
kind of threw me for a loop.
So what we will do is we will send the link, so please utilize that link to the Google Drive. That will also be one, we will lock the document so that no additional changes can be made right now, but we'll make that available to the public as well, so that they can review that strike-through version in the cleanest format that we can get it.
It could also just be my machine, so.
If there's no further questions, we will proceed. Do you want a roll call vote on that motion? Nothing?
Just a
Okay.
directive.
We'll take that directive to schedule the public hearing for September 20th at 7 PM.
All right. Next agenda item is old business. Emily?
Old business, just a couple updates for everyone. So Crossroads Village is working on updating their stormwater numbers with their site plan. That is something that myself and the town engineer are currently reviewing. We also have Transform Power Yoga's site plan. They submitted a second draft. We have responded to them and are awaiting a third submission. I think that will come in sometime mid-September to late September. We have started working on the Robinson Paradise site plan. That's a older site plan for just beyond the bridge over 66 on the left-hand side as you're leaving town on Jefferson Street. And again, that's called Robinson Paradise. We have submitted our comments back, and we will be awaiting their updated resubmission. And the, Robinson Village, not to be confused, is located on Washington Street, down near the Baptist Church and the veterinarian clinic. They are underway with their grading, and we expect that they will be going to the building department here shortly for the building permits for the townhouse units. Carter School has come through and finalized everything. We are awaiting an architectural review board application from them. And the other old business item, the hotel is moving along, still with a projected open date of very beginning January 2022. And we are working with everyone construction-wise to kind of remind them about Haymarket Day that's coming up. So we are aware of maybe some of the obstacles we'll have this year. So that's everything for old business. New business items. We are working closely with Aldi. I guess it's old new business update. And they will be coming to the Architectural Review Board next week for a modification. They would like to add gooseneck lighting above their sign so that there is more light during the evening hours down on their sign there in the front of the business. And they do hope to be opening later this fall, hopefully in October. So we are working with them on that. We do not yet have the name of the second tenant or if there is a signed lease with a second tenant at that space. We are awaiting that item. Other new business, we have one new business opening. Actually, they opened up in town this past week called Studio B. They are in the old Fashion Forward Salon. That's at the Winterham property, right on the corner there, right across from Giuseppe's. So that's Studio B, and the owner's name is Brooke. So we are going to be welcoming her at our next business roundtable. And otherwise, that's the only new business items right now.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Mr. Hallett, do you have any updates from the ARB for us?
We did a walkthrough on the Jefferson property, and I believe are we meeting with the applicant again?
Yes, so, so that everyone's aware, the Bean property is what we often refer to it as. And yes, we will be meeting with the applicant at our next meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for the 26th, but we might have a town council meeting conflict that night. So,
No, that'll be upstairs.
okay, so we will be most likely meeting on the 26th, which is next Thursday, to follow up and have our regular meeting and discussion with the applicant for the Bean property.
I think
That's it.
we'll probably, no, I'll deal with that.
That's it. All right, Mr. Weir, town council updates?
On the 26th, there will actually be a council meeting of sorts. Will be all, excuse me, it'll all be closed session because it's going to be, we're doing interviews for the chief. So it will not occur in this room. It may open in this room, but the interviews will be conducted upstairs, and it'll open, I believe, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So there should be no conflict with the ARB. But there is a meeting that I would encourage everybody to come to, and that's next Monday. You want your eyes to bleed. We're having a strategic planning session next Monday. We're going to be talking about where we stand fiscally in terms of outstanding debt, currently available reserve funds, both liquid and non-liquid, bond options, refinance options, that sort of thing, all to kickstart a couple of long-standing projects. We're going to prioritize those projects. I think the order that they're going to be addressed at the meeting will be the proposed continuation of the streetscape in front of the park, to include stormwater and curb and gutter. The other project is how do I best explain the town center one? Because it's not the building, it's the parking lot and utility infrastructure, I guess. It may or may not be part of it.
I tend to refer to it as parking lot improvements.
Okay. And then the last would be a discussion of timing and financing and potential sources of revenue, not only from the town, but also from the county, state, and feds for left turn lanes on both sides of Washington Street from Jefferson Street. Last but not least, now that we've almost got the zoning text amendment out of the way, it's time to address the comp plan. It's sort of been on hold because the feds have not given us the census data, and we now have the census data, or at least we think we have it. Have we discovered anything new since last week?
Not to my knowledge.
For what it's worth, on the face of it, and they have not given us a hard number yet, because we're a jurisdiction under 5,000 people, and I guess we're last on the list. So we're forced to extrapolate from the data that they have released. The data they've released for our census block, and I'm not entirely sure it's correct, but it's probably somewhere in the ballpark. They're claiming we went up 1,505 residents since 2010. If that's true, It portends a number of things, and we're going to have to consider this all in the comp plan. If that's true, then that puts our current population at roughly 3,300, which in and of itself isn't really a particularly big deal. However, once we cross the threshold of 3,500, it changes the type of governance the town is allowed to have. A lot of requirements kick in. 3,500, you're required to have a public works department. 3,500, it changes your auditing, changes your financial reporting. It gets significantly more expensive. We'll cross that bridge when and if we get to 3,500, and hopefully within the next week we can get a firm number from Census as to what the real number is. The press is reporting that we actually lost people in the last 10 years, but given that we've added 56 single-family units, something on that magnitude, I think they did their math wrong. So we'll get the final tally from Census whenever they decide they want to release it. But that clears the way for us to pick up the comp plan.
Bob, is the 3,300, is that pending projects as well, or is that just?
No.
Ooh.
That's boots on the ground. So you throw in 79 and 15, and we're over 3,500. I don't particularly see any way that, if that number is true, if it's, I think it's 3298, I think is what we came up with, something like that. If 3298 is the actual number, and I think it's actually probably going to be a little less than that. But if that number is true or close to true, we've got 79 townhouses at minimum 2.5? Yes. 2.5 per on an average, plus how many at 38 at another 2.5, plus Robinson's Paradise, which is 18
Families, it's 16 or 20.
at 4 plus.
Correct.
We're over 3,500 if built out.
And you technically have we do have a approved SUP for 7 townhouses over retail on Jefferson.
Yeah, forgot about that. Like I say, we'll keep everybody up to date. I mean, once we get a firm number from Census, and we just don't have the final tally because they haven't released that data point yet. All they released was the increase. So you have to do the math of the increase plus the 2010 reported and hope that the numbers are right.
Correct. What we will do is we will develop a comprehensive plan, census data work plan, and present that in September at our meeting as a new business item. And we will have a plan put together of some checklist items that we can work through to begin our comprehensive plan update, as well as, what information we need to go out and research or hire a consultant to do. And then we'll also do a snapshot of what we know on the census data at that point. They do have a certain amount of time to release it, so we'll do our very best by September.
They're the feds, so I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for it. That's all I got.
Okay, are there any items of discussion before we adjourn? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right.